Hey everyone, and who doesn't love a little bit of drama? This time it's on KDE, because one of their most prominent developers decided to leave, was pretty public about why they left, and of course there are conflicting viewpoints, so we'll talk about both of them. We also have an insane release week with GNOME 49 plus the beta for Fedora 43, the beta for Ubuntu 25.10, and the beta for Plasma 6.5, and a bunch of other things. And we also have this message from our sponsor. This video is sponsored by SquareSpace. It's your all-in-one platform to create, publish, and manage your website. Squarespace has really easy tools to make sure that anyone can end up with a really nice looking and well-optimized website, no matter if you know how to code or not. They have what they call their blueprint system, which lets you pick from a variety of templates that are pre-built and will suit any type of website, whether it's a simple blog, an online store, a video platform, whatever. All these templates are optimized by default to give you good SEO, but they also add some SEO specific tools on top of that to make sure that your website just doesn't end up on the last page of Google. On top of that, to go further, Squarespace has their own design engine to create your own pages. You can just drag and drop elements where you want them, you can change all the colors, the fonts, you can just tweak the templates however you want. And once you have something you like, you can add extra features like your own online shop with a payment system, you can design your own logo from Squarespace, you can book your own domain name to have an easy to remember address. So check out squarespace.com/TheLinuxExperiment or just click the link in the description below and you'll get 10% off your first website or domain purchase. So this week, Jonathan Riddle announced that he was leaving KDE entirely after 25 years of working on the desktop and its associated projects. Jonathan was notably one of the biggest contributors to Ubuntu, and he was working for Blue Systems, the company that funds most of KDE's development. He was also at the inception of KDE Neon, saying that at the beginning it was 3 people full-time, but that soon enough it was just Jonathan and another volunteer, which might explain why Neon was never really up to snuff in terms of stability. Unfortunately, it seems things aren't ending in good standing here, with some conflict between Jonathan and Tech Paladin, the company that was sort of built to replace Blue Systems, or at least some activities that Blue Systems didn't want to continue, mostly contract work. Jonathan says that Blue Systems is shutting down as a company, which, as far as I could tell, is not accurate. What Blue Systems is doing is divesting some of their contract work to Tech Paladin instead. Now, the issue seemed to have been on how Tech Paladin, that new company, will work, will pay people, and who gets to work with them. Jonathan says that he's being excluded and was from the get-go because he pushed for a cooperative model where people would have equal rights and equal ownership of the company. Jonathan also warns in a blog post that the structure that was in place at Blue Systems and the one being put in place at Tech Paladin are similar. It's all basically contract work without any real worker rights. Jonathan even says that no one should be working for them or with them. And of course, we got information to contradict that from 2 different sources. First, from Nate Graham himself. He's the founder of Tech Paladin, the company that sort of replaces Blue Systems as the purveyor of work for many KDE developers, specifically for the contract they have with Valve. Nate confirmed that Blue Systems is not shutting down as a company, they're just not doing consultancy work anymore, which is what Tech Paladin took over. Second, Nate says that he never wanted to shut down Jonathan from KDE, he never did anything towards that end. And finally, he says that Tech Paladin lets people buy their way into partnership in the company, so people can have equal rights as well. Just like how Igalia works, apparently. This was the reference that Jonathan used as an example of good governance for such a company. Now, apparently, Tech Paladin already practices transparency for finances and cooperative decision-making for new hires and contracts. And we have a second viewpoint on that front. We're getting it from Akseli Latinen, who is a KDE developer who used to work at Blue Systems and now is working for Tech Paladin. And he gives a no-nonsense recollection of how the transition went, which seemed to be pretty peaceful. Basically, people talked about how to set up a replacement company for the parts that Blue Systems wanted to drop, and this seemed to have taken a while. People just got tired, they wanted to keep working and keep getting paid, so they decided to go with Nate's proposal because it felt like the easiest, and that just was it. So from the accounts, it kind of feels like it's a misunderstanding from what Jonathan wanted, what he expressed, what people got from it, and what actually happened afterwards. It doesn't really feel like anyone really tried to push them out at all. It's unfortunate that people couldn't reach out to him and try to maybe make him collaborate with them and maybe join Tech Paladin instead. But those sort of things happen. People change, people interact in weird ways. I don't think it's really drama here. I don't think you can really point to anybody doing anything wrong. Just feels like a misunderstanding on how to keep working as a contract worker for KDE. Now, of course, if we start seeing reports of people working for Tech Paladin who have horror stories to tell, then maybe we'll reopen this can of worms. But right now, it doesn't feel like there's much to it. Now this week, GNOME 49 was released. I already made a big dedicated video about all the changes in there, so I'm going to go really quickly over everything that happened there. Mostly, it is a quality of life release. You're getting polish and improvements. Mutter, the window manager and compositor, received a lot of love to improve a variable refresh rate, how the mouse cursor functions, how to support ICC color profiles, some performance improvements as well. The GNOME shell received some new animations for little popovers. They moved the Do Not Disturb button to the quick settings. You also have accessibility options straight from the login screen now, so it's easier for people with disabilities to actually get into a user session. The lock screen displays a little media control applet if you have audio or video playing in the background, so you can play and pause it or move to the next or previous song or piece of media in the playlist. Importantly as well, X11 is being dropped from the default GNOME. You no longer have a GNOME X11 session built with the default flags. Distributions can override this and still build the session, but starting with GNOME 50, it will no longer be possible. Other sessions from other desktops that rely on X.org will still appear in GDM, no problem, and you'll be able to log in through GDM to those X11 sessions if you want. You also now have support for multiple brightness sliders, one for each of your displays, and those sliders move from 5% increments instead of 10%, so it's a bit more granular. And in terms of the applications, Showtime replaces Totem as the default media player. It has the same feature set, except it doesn't play DVDs apparently, so you might want to reinstall something else if you still have a DVD player. You also have Paper replacing Events, again sort of the same feature set, but a more modern libadwaita application. You have a new search pop-up in Nautilus with little tags that you can click, which is a little bit nicer. You have a new keyboard shortcut to open the current working directory in the terminal. You've got improvements to GNOME Web, to GNOME Calendar, to GNOME Software, to the camera app, to Maps, to the text editor, and you even have some new settings, including a new donation banner in the About page of the system settings, which you can click to go to the Donate page. For GNOME, distros will probably remove it. Ubuntu will do so. Maybe some other distros will show a bit more respect to the project that they actually used to build their entire stack. So this is not a huge release by any means in terms of the visual changes, but it's a bunch of cool stuff that will definitely improve your day-to-day experience. If you use GNOME on X11 though, do get prepared to not be able to do so, because in GNOME 50 this is entirely gone, and I don't think distros will be able to do anything about that. GNOME is just ditching X11 in 6 months. Now, the beta for Fedora 43 was released this week. This includes the beta for Fedora Workstation, which is the GNOME edition, the KDE Plasma edition as well, the server variant, the IoT and cloud variants, and all of the spins, except for the Mate spin, which doesn't have any releases right now, and the i3 spin, which doesn't have its ARM release yet. What Fedora 43 brings is, apart from an update to the latest desktop environments of the relevant spin or edition, you get the new Anaconda Web UI installer in all the Fedora spins, not just the GNOME edition, and now this installer is relying on DNF5 instead of DNF4, should be more stable, should be faster, and DNF4 should be deprecated probably in Fedora 44. Fedora Kinoite, so the immutable KDE variant, moves to auto-updates by default, and generally there's a fallback monospace font in case the default is missing. Fedora also now has a standard way of adding the default list of compile flags to packages, meaning maintainers don't have to manually edit and export variables. This should result in higher package quality over time with fewer errors. So it's nothing major in terms of what the distro is doing compared to Fedora 42, for example. It's mostly an update to your latest and greatest desktop environment of choice. And of course, if you use a server variant, then it's the latest packages in your repos. Now, Ubuntu 25.10 also got its beta. You can expect all the goodies from GNOME 49, which we talked about already, but there are some Ubuntu-specific changes in there too. First, the Yaru theme received updates to the icons and to the boot screen animation. You get Yaru symbolic icons in the new accessibility menu of GNOME 49's login screen. You get new icons for the new apps that Ubuntu ships, which are Loop and Tixis. You also have new MIME type icons for CSV and TOML files. You've got a new trash can icon. You've got icons for the system monitor, for the firmware updater, for GNOME Builder, for various stages of battery charging, and more. Ubuntu also finally moves to that loop image viewer that has been the default in GNOME for a while now. I really thought they were already using it, but apparently not. And they also replaced the terminal by Tixis or Petixis. I'm not sure if you're supposed to pronounce the P. It's a really nice looking terminal client, but it won't revolutionize your use in terms of the distro itself. 25.10 also replaces initramfs tools with Dracut, updates the drivers, and moves to the kernel 6.17. They also improved the radius on the Ubuntu dock between the icons themselves, the dock, and the right-click menu. You also get keyboard shortcuts for the desktop icons now. The Security Center gained features to handle your recovery keys for the TPM-backed disk encryption features of Ubuntu. You get Rust-based sudo and core utilities, and more. Ubuntu also elected not to change GNOME's default for X11, meaning there will be no X11 session in Ubuntu out of the box. Xwayland works, you can still install x.org and other desktops that support X11, but there is no GNOME X11 session in Ubuntu 25.10. So it looks like an interesting one, more changes in there than what we usually see on an intermediary Ubuntu release, so that's pretty cool. And of course you can expect a dedicated video when it releases its stable version. I think it's in early October. Now, speaking of Ubuntu though, their transition to the Rust-based core utilities is progressing, but it seems that there are some issues with that, notably on the performance department. So they are replacing the good old GNU core utils with Rust-based versions. There are supposed to be a drop-in replacement with a few caveats, but apparently performance isn't up to par. Some utilities, like CKSum, being 17 times slower when handling large files, or the sort command not even finishing sorting large files either. These issues have been identified, they are being worked on, and of course that's the entire point of testing those Rust core utilities in an intermediary release instead of an LTS. It allows people to detect issues, to fix them, or to go back to the previous solution if the new one isn't solid enough. Now, it looks like Ubuntu is going to push those utilities in Ubuntu 25.10 no matter what. It is interesting to have that pushed as hard as it is, especially since it doesn't seem like it's a full drop-in replacement. I personally was expecting more issues on the weird custom scripts making calls to those GNU core utils and the Rust versions not handling that exactly in the same way, but apparently it's mostly performance problems, which is good news because it can be fixed. Now, KDE Plasma 6.5 got its beta this week as well, with a bunch of changes. Breeze windows gained rounded corners for all window corners, which is not going to be an improvement in the eye of some people. You will be able to disable that if you don't like it. You also get a new initial setup tool if you installed your distro through an OEM install, or if you bought a computer pre-installed with KDE, you'll get that first user setup that you can handle. There are also some improvements to the clipboard manager, letting you mark entries as favorites and keeping them for later. You can also sync the contents of the clipboard between a server and a remote desktop client. There's also global keyboard shortcut support for KRunner. There's the ability to switch to another global theme based on the time of day and your region in the world. So at night you can switch to a night theme, for example. You can now hibernate from the login screen directly. Plasma panels can now be scrolled when they have too much stuff to display. You get a new system notification when you're plugging in a new device. Drawing tablets get more configuration options. Discover can now handle the Flatpak HTTPS URL, so if you go to FlatHub, you click the install button, it should open Discover and let you install stuff. Kwin will handle tone mapping better when you enable HDR. The system settings will display more information about gaming controllers that you have connected. You also have day and night wallpaper support, a Bluetooth toggle in the system settings, which only existed in the system tray right now, as far as I can tell. You also have support for ink levels being displayed for your connected printers. You have improvements to the sticky note widget and more. So it seems like a quality of life release mostly. It also feels like neither GNOME or KDE have a big project to move on to next. Wayland is mostly done, apart from some user niche edge cases or some NVIDIA related edge cases. VRR is done, HDR is mostly done. The big thing next is accessibility, which needs to be fixed on the Wayland side first, as far as I can tell, but it doesn't feel like these projects have a big thing to focus on right now. So hopefully they're gonna do some quality of life releases, some bug fixing releases, and then we'll move on to, I don't know, maybe a full-on redesign of the Breeze theme would be cool on KDE, or maybe a shrinking down of the padding of libadwaita apps could be nice as well. We'll see what happens. Now this week AMD confirmed that their older AMD VLK driver is now over. They had already said that they were shifting their work to RADV, which is the open source Vulkan driver that is in MESA, and AMD VLK, their own open source user space driver, was going to slowly be sidelined. It hasn't received any real work for months, and they now officially announced that this driver is discontinued and that they are moving all their support towards RADV. This is a really good choice in my opinion. It means that there's only one driver to worry about, and it is a good driver as well. RADV was the one that most distributions decided to use anyway, and it was the one the community contributed to the most as well, so it makes sense. Simplification of the driver landscape and consolidation of efforts, those are not things that we often see in the Linux world, honestly, and sometimes it feels good to not have, hey, here's another fork, here's another new thing that does the same thing. No, this time it's, we're concentrating efforts on one solution, so it's good, and I think that's nice for once. Now this week, OpenAI also admitted what we all knew by just pure empirical experience, which is that AI models are programmed to invent stuff rather than saying that they do not know. 3 OpenAI researchers wrote a research paper called Why LLMs Hallucinate, and what they're basically concluding is that most mainstream evaluations of the quality of an answer given by an AI model favor having an answer, even if it is fully invented and completely baseless, rather than not providing an answer. All along the training steps, AI is rewarded if it gives an answer, even if it's just guessing that answer. So the entire issue is that AI scores high no matter what it answers. Truth or verification or whatever doesn't really come into play. Even worse, benchmarks that are used to judge whether a model is better than its predecessor after the training is done, they also tend to reward hallucinations by penalizing uncertainty. So in theory, AI companies could remove or at least mitigate hallucinations in 2 ways. The first one would be to use a full dataset that contains the entirety of human knowledge without any error or bias, which is, as we all know, impossible because that human knowledge is transcribed by humans and it is full of errors and biases because we are humans. So the AI takes that into account and fabricates answers based on those biases and errors. The second way would be to disincentivize the simple fact of giving an answer, no matter if it's invented or not. Maybe reward the AI when it says, I don't know, when it clearly couldn't have given a suitable answer. Now the issue is people react sort of badly to someone telling them I don't know, and the AI will always look smarter if it gives an answer that a user will absolutely not check, because people do not check what AIs write. So I'm not sure if AI companies will go that route. They seem really happy right now promoting their chatbots as being ready for full-time use, which they are clearly not. So I don't think they're gonna want to downgrade how their AI looks or feels in terms of intelligence, even though saying I don't know is generally the more intelligent approach. As I was taught as a kid, you should say I don't know instead of inventing something outright. People who always try to have an answer for everything are generally not the smartest ones. Now let's conclude with a little bit about Steam. Steam will be ending 32-bit support for its client in January 2026. Games that are 32-bit will still run, but the client itself will not run on 32-bit systems. The catch is right now this move is just for Windows. On Linux and macOS, the client will still rely on 32-bit libraries and dependencies. Now, with that move made on Windows, it is really reasonable to expect the same coming to Linux in the future, and that is important because it would let a lot of distributions finally drop 32-bit libraries even when they're just there to run 32-bit programs on a 64-bit system. A lot of distros have been looking at doing just that, and every time the catch has been, if you do that, you lose every single gamer that you had because that breaks Linux gaming entirely. Now, there are probably other 32-bit apps that people run on their 64-bit systems on Linux. Steam is not the only one, but it is the most prevalent and visible one. I'm pretty sure Valve will end up ditching 32-bit support on Linux and macOS after it's done making that transition to Windows, and honestly, I think it's for the best. What would also be for the best is checking out our sponsor, Tuxedo Computers. Now, you probably have heard me talking about Tuxedo by now. They are a laptop and desktop manufacturer that ships computers with Linux pre-installed. They have plenty of hardware choices, from the smallest, least expensive laptops that they have, all the way up to gigantic gaming laptops, workstations, you name it. You can configure the hardware inside. On laptops, you can change the keyboard layout with a lot of options. You can have your own logo engraved on the lid. They're just really customizable and really fantastic. I only use their devices. Everything you see or hear from me is done on one of their laptops, and I do all my gaming on one of their desktops. So if you need a new computer, the link is as usual down in the description. Anyway, thank you all for watching the video or listening to it in the background. You have all the usual YouTube stuff that you can do. It's more important than ever to click on those or write a comment because YouTube really changed how they count the views right now, and so the numbers I report to sponsors are actually way lower, even though the channel is doing well, which means sponsors might just stop paying me as much, which means I might not be able to keep making those videos. So the more you click on the buttons, the better the numbers are and the happier the sponsors will be as well. Thank you all for watching, and I guess you'll see me in the next one. Bye!